What is up, guys? Wrestling Premiere is here. Finally, I've really wanted to make this for a while. Why? Well, I just love this event. I'm happy to watch it for the first time in years. That main event was something befitting a WrestleMania main event. It could have been better, and while it is unfortunate that the whole invasion thing fell through, the conclusion was awesome. Other than the main event, there was some gems on the show, such as Test vs. Edge of that steel cage match, and every match was high stakes, so it made for an unpredictable show if you look at it from that time period. Funny enough, it could have been crazier with Goldberg, Flair, Hogan, Nash, Hall, Sting. It's sad to think about, and had they taken their time with things, it would have worked. Everyone would have made big bucks, the ratings would have probably been even higher than they were. So yeah, it's just a missed opportunity. Now, one thing to mention about the WWF during the fall of 2001 is that the ratings were falling hard. The purchases of WCW, ECW, and add to that Austin's heel turn made a bunch lose interest. Another thing to mention is that The Rock went to Hollywood right when Austin turned heel, so the fans didn't really have a very big babyface to cheer for. Triple H was a villain, The Undertaker wasn't really doing much, so it was bad business. Also, 2001 was the first year since 1998 that Raw fell to a 3.9 rating or lower, barring the 2000 Christmas episode, obviously. Compared to 2002, it was still pretty good though. Another thing to mention is that Survivor Series a week before the event wasn't sold out. Attendance in general was down compared to 2000. They were starting to get desperate in the grand scheme of things. They were going to hit the reset button following the event, and they were going to split the two brands, as we all know. I'm not going to lie though, but 2001 is actually up there with my favorite WWE years. Hell, in terms of pay-per-views, it's in my top 3, so there's that. Every pay-per-view, or nearly every single one of them, delivered. Anyway, Survivor Series 2001 was held in the Greensboro Coliseum in Greensboro, North Carolina on November 18th, 2001. 10,142 were in attendance to witness the conclusion of the invasion. One thing to mention is that champions are immune from getting fired, so even if WCW wins, The Rock can't get fired. The commentators for this one were Jim Ross and Paul Heyman, who I should note were an excellent partnership. I don't know how in the hell one was able to replace Jerry Lawler during the tail end of the Attitude Era, but Paul Heyman did a magnificent job. Every main event felt like a huge deal when those two called it. The show started off with a tribute to the WWF with The End Is Near music playing. You know, they showed Vince McMahon Sr., WrestleMania 3, Hogan, Savage, everyone. It felt like a conclusion to the company, although that wasn't going to happen, obviously. The first match was for the WWF European Championship. Christian of the Alliance defended the gold against Al Snow of Team WWF, and he was the coach on Tough Enough. By the way, you guys want Tough Enough? Also, it's good to hear Christian's song once more. The match itself was made abruptly on MTV Sunday Night Heat, and the champion decided to greet his fans in South Carolina. Yup, he screwed up deliberately. He got booed for making a mistake, and it was heel 101 stuff, you know, your hopes and dreams, the WWF will die. Al Snow, I believe, had Maven's future theme. It was WF You Care. And the weird part to me about this match was the fact that Al Snow was the one who challenged for the title. It's not a knock on him. It's just if you've seen the pay-per-views, Raw, SmackDown, he wasn't appearing weekly. And the spot could have gone to anyone else, like, you know, the one Billy Gunn. But anyways, it doesn't matter. Al Snow's cool. Takedowns in the early going. Snow was easily out-wrestling Christian initially, and the champion had to rely on punches and chops, you know, dirty fighting, Russian leg sweeps, headlock, chokeholds. He was pretty aggressive in his efforts to win the match. Snow found a little opening and went for those headbutts. He hit the super kick, and this got him a near fall, but that wasn't it, though. He got a powerbomb in, though, but it wasn't enough. His momentum fizzled out with a rake to the eye and the inverted DDT. Christian got a little in over his head and nearly pays the price. Back and forth action until Al hit the snowplow. This would have gotten him a victory, but Christian's foot was on the bottom rope. Paul Heyman was shouting, foot on the rope, showing his clear bias. Christian took advantage and hit the unprettier to retain his title. And not bad. I didn't think it was boring. For what it was actually decent. I think had they gone a little longer, it might have been a hidden gem, but for some reason it was rushed. And it's not something to go out of your way to watch. But if you're watching the event, yeah, you'll probably enjoy it. So yeah, not bad. Backstage, Austin and Deborah finally arrived to the arena. The Alliance were worried about Steve joining the group as he wasn't really taking anything seriously, and added to the fact that he smiled. He smiled at Vince McMahon on SmackDown. Yeah, they were very suspectful of their leader. He assured them otherwise and even promised to take down the World Wrestling Federation. The team was putting their full trust into Steve, and he wasn't ready to disappoint them. At least that's what he says. Meanwhile, Vince and Linda were discussing the main events and the high stakes, and obviously Vince wasn't one to be scared of competition, and he was like,
happens.
All of a sudden, Michael Cole approached the boss and asked about the possibility of it being the final night the WWF is in business. McMahon gave his word that the WWF will prevail, and he reminded Michael Cole of his past calculated risks. He said that he wasn't going to risk his company if he didn't know he can stand tall at the end. Hell, he even claimed that there were 6 WWF guys to 4 Alliance guys. That basically means someone was going to defect. William Regal then bumped into the McMahons and told them that he will take great pleasure in watching everything that they've sweated for go down the toilet. He was also looking forward to the first Alliance Raw. In the arena, Paul Heyman was billing the event as the final WWF show.
It will no longer be sports entertainment.
They showed a little replay to SmackDown where Regal locked Tori in the stretch, and it was time for the next match. William Regal, the commissioner of the Alliance, against Tajiri. You guys all know about the little friendship these two had, right? Tajiri was brought in as an assistant. He helped Regal turn into a babyface, but that was all thrown out the window. Another thing to note is that from what I can find, the match was initially going to be between X-Pac and Tajiri for the light heavyweight title, but since the kid suffered an injury, it was scrapped. Right in the beginning, Tajiri punished Regal with some stiff-ass kicks. Regal relied on the aggressive nature of his style, but his old friend was quick, elusive, and he got the tarantula locked in. At this point, William was bleeding from his nose, and it was brutal. Then, poor Tajiri got hung onto the ropes, and this got the commissioner some heat from the fans. They chanted, "Regal sucks," and it was clear that they were very into the match. Unfortunately, though, just as the match got going, it abruptly ended. Tajiri missed the buzzsaw, and Regal hit a powerbomb to win. The thing was just getting started, and it quickly ended. I assume it had something to do with Regal's nose, although that may be doubtful, because back then they used to fight through the injuries, you know? I don't know, though. Tori Wilson then rushed to tend to Tajiri's aid, and Regal got in over his head and assaulted her once again. Paul was wishing her goodbye, and the stuff he's saying, man. Yes, the match just got going, but it quickly ended. Regal was slowly gaining a lot of heat, but that would all fizzle out the next night because he kissed somebody's ass. The next match was a title unification match. Edge defends the WCW United States Championship, and Test defends the WWF Intercontinental Championship. Beforehand, Test was acting the exact way he does by arrogantly making claims, complaining,
Janet, where the light out there doesn't catch my body the right way.
And Edge, on the other hand, he made fun of Test's past relationships and the way he mocked him.
I lost. What the hell is that all about?
Both the guys were seen as future prospects, especially Edge. The crowd loved the guy for many reasons, because of his promos where he mocks his opponents, his matches, his character, everything. Also, titles during the invasion were worth about as much as wrist tape, I guess. Oh, look at me, I'm champion. Anyways, Test took the advantage initially. Paul Heyman was insulting JR in his future, Edge's ribs were killing from the barricade, and Test was arrogantly taking his time. Edge, though, tried quickening the pace, and this tactic was pretty effective for a few moments. Test, meanwhile, was sort of methodical, and Paul Lee thought it was a foregone conclusion. Edge was grounded, but he had the fans' full support. Back and forth action, near falls, and soon enough, the IC champion took notice of Edge's aerial moves and ducked. Hell, he even tried going up top himself, but was unsuccessful. Once both men got up, they continued a slugfest. Edge began building momentum. That is until he found himself in pump handle slam position. Luckily, he countered into the Edge-o-matic, and then Test went for Edge's own move, and it looked brutal. And it was finisher time. Big boot, nope. Spear, nope. But it was the pump handle slam that was successfully hit. That wasn't enough, and Mr. I Focus on Girls More Than Matches got angry. He attempted a powerbomb, we got a head scissors, and Edge connected with the spear. 1, 2, no, I swear, when I was watching this, I thought it was it. Since it didn't get him the titles, Edge tried the Impaler DDT. That failed, and Test tried going for one of his slams when the US champion rolled him up. 1, 2, 3. Yes, there it is. Test was seething, he screwed up, and Edge didn't really have much time to celebrate because the WWF preferred to show Stephanie McMahon. Okay, the match itself was kind of good. I liked the action. Edge was going for fast-paced stuff, whereas Test was just out to destroy him, you know. He was going after the ribcage, slamming him, rights, lefts. It was simple yet entertaining. I think that if they got a little more time, they could have tore the house down, too. Also, it depends on your opinion. You might like or dislike this match. It doesn't matter. Stephanie McMahon, meanwhile, was very worried about the stakes and was very fearful of being a normal person. You know, washing the dishes, picking up the garbage. Yeah, that stuff. Angle, though, was quick to sway her mind into the other direction. The next match was another title unification match. Team Extreme with the WWF Tag Team titles against the Dudley Boys with the WCW Tag titles. By the looks of it, Matt's plate is broken, or I'm high. Lita was worried about the amount of stress her boyfriend's recently been under, and it was clear why. Their jobs were on the line. Anyways, the Duchess of Dudleyville was once again there to cause mischief. Lita wasn't there because she had other things to worry about. And another thing to note is that both teams had each other's titles. It was confusing because look at the nameplate. The Dudleys were called the WWF Tag Team Champions. And that's probably a mistake, right? Anyways, in the beginning, Matt showed pure intensity. The Hardys executed double team moves, and it took a while for the Dudleys to find their form. But once they did, the team was more aggressive in their efforts to win, you know. Elbows, slams. Matt was isolated for a bit, and he found an opening and tagged Jeff, who Paul criticized for the stupidest reasons ever.
Why does this guy have blue hair? There's one thing I can't stand is blue hair. I'd rather be bald than have hair like that.
The Hardys picked up momentum, poetry in motion on both members. They tried escaping but were unsuccessful, and Jeff got punished, whereas Devon received a Russian leg sweep. At a moment's notice, the match took a turn, and it was originally a normal tag inside a cage, but now it was a pure fight. It was a tornado tag. The Dudleys found a way to take advantage. Jeff received a doomsday device, and they were finally in control. Both Matt and Jeff just couldn't counter any of the moves, be it on the mat or on the cage, but the Dudleys got a little too arrogant, and Jeff capitalized. Finally, things were going their way. Despite the internal bleeding, Matt had an adrenaline rush. Jeff soon followed through, and one of their double team moves almost got the win. There was a little scary spot there with Matt. He was hanging from the top of the cage, and this gave the Dudleys the advantage once more. Bubba then demanded a table, and JR was confused because, like, how in the hell are you going to bring a table into a cage match? But Stacy showed how it's done. Nick Patrick was already corrupt for years, and Stacy managed to get him to not notice what was going on, basically. And so the table was in the ring. He tried making it seem like he was impartial. You know, he's yelling at her, "Wait, what are you doing? Blah, blah, blah." And the Dudleys almost hit 3D, but Matt intercepted Bubba Ray. He put the whole thing to a screeching halt, and he then climbed up to the top and actually escaped. The problem with this, though, was the fact that Jeff Hardy was all alone with multi-time tag champions. Heyman loudly expressed this on commentary, and Jeff almost followed suit. But he opted to do the most Hardy thing ever and hit a swanton through the table. Devon moved out of the way, and it cost them the titles. Matt tried climbing in, but it was too little, too late. He couldn't resist it. Okay, this was a good-ass match. So far, it's my favorite of the night. It was back-and-forth action. Paul was pretty funny on commentary, and it was a gem. That's what I'm trying to say. Was it amazing? Nah. It was just plain fun. Maybe it is amazing to you, whatever, it's your opinion, so yeah. The Dudleys ended up having one final run, whereas the Hardys began to implode, and I will dive into their story eventually, so yeah. At WWF New York, Mick Foley was there to explain why he's not in Greensboro. Apparently, Vince demanded he be there, and it was simple, you know. Vince told him to stay in New York. He thought his role as a commissioner was a joke since he wasn't even allowed to be at the arena, and he promised to be in Charlotte the next night, as he was prepared to say some things to Vince McMahon, win or lose. About that, well, Foley ended up resigning. In the arena, Test approached Scotty 2 Hotty and asked, "You're in that immunity battle royal, right?" And Scotty's like, "What's it to you?" And Test assaulted him and stole a spot, simply put. The next match was the immunity battle royal. The winner remains employed, can't get fired for a year. So even if their team wins, they could keep their job and do as they see fit. Doesn't matter if they slap the boss Vince McMahon. My oh my, how hard is DDP fallen? Also, I thought there were 2 Tommy Dreamers there, but that's obviously Stevie Richards. Test was there as you expected, and anyways, you guys already know I love Battle Royals, so this is like 4 stars already. Poor Stasiak got thrown out right then and there. Test made his return a part of Team WWF, I assume, because he got kicked out of the Alliance. He assaulted Paul on SmackDown, and he made his return here. Heyman was clearly irritated by his presence.
What the hell is Taz doing here?
Hurricane got lariated out. Poor DDP got eliminated by Chuck Palumbo of all people. And then Chavo Guerrero Jr. and Hugh Morris, who were kicked out of the Alliance, also decided to enter the match. Slowly, the participants in the ring dwindled. Taz had some words for Heyman, and this cost him. Paul celebrated as if it was Christmas before pissing his pants in fear. And so at this point, there were 4 guys remaining, and you could see, like, who the WWF valued in a way. JR and Heyman continued arguing. Test got rid of Storm and Bradshaw, and all that remained was himself in the one. He caught Test with a kick to the gut, tried the Famouser, but found out he wasn't the one to win the Battle Royal because Test kicked his head off. What a kick that was. Test was victorious. I think it was obvious once the moment he entered the Battle Royal, but yeah, he was the one who gained immunity. Like, he can't get fired. Doesn't matter what happens. And he did push his weight around in the next couple of weeks. That's one thing to mention. But it was all about harassing ladies. That's all. Also, I forgot about this.
The Alliance will win. The Alliance will win. The Alliance will win.
Overall, I don't hate Battle Royals. It's easy for me to enjoy them, and this certainly was just that. In the back, Booker T was letting Shane know that he lacked trust for Austin. The whole DTA thing made sense to him, and he didn't want to lose his job due to Stone Cold Steve Austin. Shane O'Mac, though, tried convincing him otherwise, and he hoped that would be true. You know, I wish Austin is on our side. The next match was for the vacant WWF Women's Championship. The title had been inactive for about 6 months due to China departing the company. That's one thing to note. She had left in like May of 2001 after some issues with Triple H and Stephanie. That's a whole other thing. Yes, this is where the WWF decided to bring back the title and crown the new champion as Survivor Series. Trish Stratus, Jacqueline, Lita, who I should know was pretty damn over, you know, it's her home state. Ivory, who's got one of those early SmackDown games music, Mighty Molly, and a surprise. There was one surprise there. That was an alliance surprise, I should know. Apparently, it was Jazz from ECW. It was the first time that she was in the WWF, and she showed just what she's made of right in the early going. Paul praised her and made her sound or look like $1,000,000 on commentary. Everyone tagged themselves in and out. Jacqueline found herself on a hot streak until she was bounced off the ropes. Trish entered, and you could see she learned a lot, like, in the short time she's been in the ring. The alliance members tried jumping one of the WWF stars. Lita and Jacqueline decided to form a small partnership due to this, but then Jackie realized that the stakes are way more important than teamwork. Molly from out of nowhere with the go-around, the chick kick from Trish, Poison Ivory, Twist of Fate from Lita. She even hit the moonsault, and it was anybody's match at this point. The fans were really behind Lita. There was a botch there, but then Trish hit a sudden satisfaction, and she was the new women's champion. Also, what the hell is Jackie doing? Trish's victory came off as a shocker, I believe, because, well, she only started to take wrestling seriously that year, and now she's champion. It was an upset. JR, you could hear in his voice. She eventually became the biggest woman star in the entire company throughout 2002 and 2003, so there's that. It's so weird how she improved in such a short time. Like, she actually focused 100% and became a very good women's wrestler. It's crazy. Yes, Trish, she eventually began feuding with Jazz Lita throughout 2002. Now, about the match, I didn't hate it. It was actually better than most women's matches I've seen from this time period. Not 2002, I'm talking about 2000, 99, 01, those years. I was better than what I expected. That's what I'm trying to say, so yeah. Was it awesome? Was it good? Not really. It was short as hell. They all got their moments to shine. That's one thing for sure, though. So, yeah. And it was time. Paul Heyman was telling JR to wish the fans goodbye. They went back and forth, and in the back, McMahon stared down each and every single competitor a part of Team WWF. He did realize that he could be looking at a group of losers, and if that's how it is, then there's not going to be a single WWF fan all over the world who's going to forgive him. He said that if they lose, they'll be professionally disgraced. Should they lose, they'll be justifiably ridiculed by their peers and family members. Vince reminded them of the stars of the past, you know. I love that part when he mentions High Chief Peter Maivia. And basically the speech was about survival. McMahon wanted to instill motivation into the WWF stars' mind, and it was time. Okay, winner take all. Team WWF, The Rock, Chris Jericho, the Brothers of Destruction, and The Big Show versus the Alliance. Stone Cold Steve Austin, Kurt Angle, Booker T, Shane McMahon, and Rob Van Dam. Initially, Vince was supposed to be in that thing, but he suffered a thigh injury or something like that. Also, I'd just like to say one thing and one thing only. Damn, do I love this match. The promo that Heyman gave about the WWF's past and about Vince himself. I love the build-up to the whole thing. The finishers in abundance on SmackDown. Everything. I'm not talking about the invasion itself. I'm talking about the build-up to Survivor Series. That's what I love. I can trash the invasion storyline and talk about how the WWF essentially shot themselves with the whole angle, but watching this match again, the promo, I'm not gonna lie, it gave me goosebumps. I went to the YouTube version of the promo. I haven't seen it in a long time. You hear the puddle of mud music. They're all fighting. They're hitting each other with chairs and whatnot. Man, the star power was there, although it could have been even bigger, which is so damn weird to think about. Whatever. The whole thing was coming to an end. The Alliance and WWF personnel watched on in the back, and funny enough, Austin was still in a happy mood despite the high stakes. It seemed like he was implying some sort of collusion between himself and Team WWF. Like I said earlier, Vince got injured, and so Big Show replaced him. He may have felt out of place to some, but I think he was probably the best choice out of anyone on the roster because, you know, he's big. He was the guy that fans could take seriously the most. I mean, you want Billy Gunn in there? Not a knock on Billy Gunn, just saying. Once again, Heyman and JR argued before the match even began. They continued taking jabs. Anyways, things began with Austin and Rock. Right hands were in the air throughout the early going. Luthez press exchanges. Booker enters, gets his ass kicked, and so it's Van Dam and Y2J now. They tried eluding each other's moves until Jericho got a spinning heel kick. RVD was all about his unorthodox offense. He got stuck in the walls, but Shane once again got involved and put a stop to a risky situation. This time around, it was Kane and Kurt Angle. The Olympic hero showed no fear, but the Big Red Machine showed no pain. Again, Shane O'Mac ruins a pinfall attempt. No team found any substantial advantage to the match in the early going. Every time the WWF guys go for a cover, Shane breaks it. Booker T was struggling on defense. He had to tag in Austin to give the Alliance some advantage. Shane once again breaks the pinfall, and I've lost count at this point. The Coalition eventually isolated The Undertaker, and this worked to their advantage. Taker did have a burst of momentum, but it didn't really mean much in the long run. He did bounce back, however, with a DDT, and both men were looking to tag out. And in came the Big Show with a bunch of momentum. He bounced Angle around like nothing. He leveled every single one of the Alliance members and was all fired up. Unfortunately, he found himself on the receiving end of an Angle Slam, a Scissors Kick, and the 5-star Frog Splash. Then to add insult to injury, Shane hits an elbow from the top to eliminate the Big Show. Shane, though, finally got his comeuppance, and if The Rock's flurry of punches weren't enough, Kane's chokeslam definitely was. That wasn't it, though, because The Undertaker hit one of those SmackDown game tombstones, and Jericho with the Lion Salt to get rid of the Boy Wonder. In the ring, the Alliance had a clear advantage with Van Dam's 5-star. There was a little scare there with a chokeslam, but Booker kicked Kane's head off. And then the whole thing broke down all over ringside. Van Dam in the ring caught Kane with a missile kick, and he was gone. So it was time for The Undertaker to enter the match. He went through every single one of the opponents. He had a last rod on Angle, kicked Booker, but received a stone cold stunner. Austin then dragged Angle's body right onto Taker's, and he was out. So now it was 2-on-4. Add to the personal issues Jericho and Rocky had. Yeah, it was bad. It was real bad. There was some fast-paced action between Rock and Booker. Paul Heyman thought it was all but over, a foregone conclusion. Now, even if Rock found an opening, Angle and RVD would break the pinfall, so it was pretty annoying. And Jericho, he was like sort of out of it at this point. He was knocked down. He was on the floor. Luckily, though, Booker bumped into Angle and Rock capitalized with a roll-up. 1, 2, 3. Yes! He's out. The WWF guys were starting to get excited, and it was comeback time. RVD thought Booker had it, hence him not coming in and breaking the fall. The Rock used the elimination to his advantage. Add to the fact that the crowd was rooting for him, he used this to get every ounce of energy in his being to tag in Jericho. It had been a while since Y2J entered, so right out of the gate, he whooped RVD's ass. He almost even hit the lion saw, but Van Dam was pretty quick himself. Actually too quick, and this cost him. Now it was 2-on-2. Each man fought the enemy inside and outside the ring. Paul Heyman was without a worry in the world, and things were looking pretty bleak for the WWF, which explains Paul Heyman's morale. Jericho was stuck in there with Austin and Angle. They tagged in and out, and sure, Y2J got some offense in, but he never put in an effort to tag out. The Alliance were picking him out, wearing him down. It was pure isolation. Eventually, though, both Austin and Jericho got knocked down with clotheslines, and the fans were getting Chris back into it. He tagged in Rock, and this paid dividends. He had so much drive. Right out of the gate, he knocked down Austin, threw around Angle and locked him in the sharpshooter, and he tagged. The pressure at this point was mounting on Austin. I mean, he's got to deal with not only Jericho, but a Rock who was still pretty energetic. Paul was finally winding up.
All alone against The Rock and Jericho. An injured Stone Cold all by himself.
And the leader did struggle, but he caught Jericho with a very quick roll-up, and it was 1-on-1. Jericho was complaining to the ref, and it was at this moment Rock realized he was screwed. Jericho, for some reason, let his ego get the best of him like a little kid. Austin went for the cover. The WWF guys were fuming, and luckily the Rock kicked out at the last moment. Y2J was ready for round 2, but The Undertaker put a complete stop to it and cursed him to the back. Fans were loudly chanting, "Rocky, Rocky." Once they both got up, Austin argued with the ref, and Rock took advantage. Grey One, though, was unceremoniously thrown over that top rope and probably injured his leg. Both men had a little exchange on the outside, and the ref didn't really want to end it right then and there. As for Heyman and JR, they reached the climax of argument. It was the absolute peak at this point.
Too late to suck up. Why don't you kiss my ass? Why do you keep wanting me to kiss your ass?
The Rock was like a warrior, and things got worse for him when Austin got the sharpshooter locked in. But like a champion, he fought through and reached the ropes. It was really high drama at this point. A couple of seconds later, Rock himself locked the hole in, and Austin just struggled to keep himself from tapping, but he kept himself going and got to the ropes. Then it was finishers galore. Austin couldn't hit the stunner, but Rock certainly did. And that was basically it, right? Well, Nick Patrick comes in and blasts Earl Hebner. His distraction benefited Austin greatly, who hit the the rock bottom. 1, 2, Rock kicks out, and Austin seething. He was so angry that he nailed his own damn referee and opted to bring in Earl Hebner. Ref enters the match only to get bumped into, and The Rock capitalizes with the rock bottom. Nope, instead, it's the stunner. He flopped like a fish, and Paul Heyman proclaimed the World Wrestling Federation to be dead. Steve Austin goes for the cover, but there's no referee. He tries reviving the ref when Kurt Angle comes to his aid. Psych! He blasts Austin instead. The crowd goes so damn nuts, and The Rock hits the rock bottom. 1, 2, 3. Paul Heyman was speechless. Rock's music's playing. The WWF guys celebrate, and Stephanie's world was crumbling apart. And if anything, the person you should feel bad about the most is freaking Jazz. First night in, and she's out, if you think about it in kayfabe. Also, I love the part when JR straight up tells Paul that he's out of a job. Like, for months, the guy's been biased as he could be. For months, he ridiculed his colleague, and now he was finally going to get what was coming to him.
You're out of work again. You didn't win, Paul.
And so the WWF prevailed. The Alliance was officially dead. What a match that was. It was fun, tremendous, entertaining, captivating, superb, magnificent. It was everything you'd want in an elimination match, except, of course, the NWO or Goldberg appearing. Should the Alliance story ended in much grander fashion? Hell yeah. I don't want to talk about that at the moment, but one thing that's for sure is that this elimination match is without a doubt top 3 for me. Hell, it might even be the very best. I'll watch the Survivor Series 03 match, and I'll get back to you guys. My man of the match is The Rock. Why is that? Not because he won. take that out of the way, because he showed so much intensity and passion. At a moment's notice, he picks up the pace of the match, and it seemed like he didn't feel any sense of fatigue at some points. Shane McMahon was pretty damn annoying breaking up the falls, and it was satisfying to see him get his comeuppance. Big Show, he was in and out within 2 minutes, and in kayfabe, his inexperience showed. Kane fell under the radar for me due to his short appearances inside the ring, and all I could seem to recall from him was a chokeslam on Shane and the frog splash from RVD. Booker T showed aggression, The Undertaker also, Jericho and Van Dam were about the high rent district, and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Watching the match, I was reminded of the fact that Austin, his 2001 was probably his best year. Probably his best year in ring in a way. Keyword in a way. He had the neck and knee issues, yet he was much better than he was a couple of years earlier. Like, compare 99 to 01, and you'll see which year was much better for him. In ring once again. For me, his 2 best years were 97 and 01. In terms of classics, those 2 were his years. Also, he wasn't physically in his peak back in 01, yet he took 100 Germans from Benoit, had a great match with just about everyone. And the last person I'd like to mention, Kurt Angle. The damn suck-up trolled everyone. He turned on Team WWF for a month, becomes a mole. Looking at his role, it's so bizarre, but it makes sense that he'd stay loyal to the team. Was it dumb? Maybe. I mean, Jericho could have been the one to join the group because it made a hell of a lot more sense. You know, he hates The Rock. Another thing to mention is that Survivor Series 2001 was the first time ever that The Rock ever beat Stone Cold Steve Austin. It's a weird fact due to the amount of times they faced off before, and yeah, that's Survivor Series. I never really hated a match on the show. Scratch that, I never hated the match on the show. Opener could have been longer, but it was decent nonetheless. Tajiri and Regal, damn shame it didn't last long. Edge and Test was pretty good. The cage match provided some entertainment. The Immunity Battle Royal, I love Battle Royal, so even if it sucked, I liked it. The women's match wasn't slow, and sure, there was some noticeable botches. Wasn't bad to me for the most part. And the main event, oh man, that was something. So much star power, yet it could have featured even bigger stars, which is crazy to think about. So yeah, obviously you guys know what the match of the night is. It's the main event. Hell, it might even be match of the year 2001 for me. The whole week in general after Survivor Series felt like a totally different era. So yeah, which Survivor Series do you guys want next? 02, 03, 05, 09? Please comment down below. And that's it for this video. Make sure you hit a Stone Cold Stunner on the like button and perhaps the rock bottom on the subscribe button. Peace. I'm out.